Love it. So, shall we go over to these questions then on the blog over here? Now, as they've come in, Nicola's been answering them. I only found that out today. But anyway, so I think I'm going to pretend to be the student asking the question, and then Nicola is going to, I guess, reiterate what she's talking about
Yeah,
each
I
time, and
didn't
then we get to
answer
the bottom.
all of them. I think I got a bit enthusiastic and forgot that we were going to do this session.
Oh,
So,
right.
so by all means, why don't you ask the question and then
Okay.
yeah.
Well, student A was wondering whether we still need to include references and a reference list like normal coursework, or whether we should complete the essay in exam style.
Yeah, so this we decided that we wanted you to have this as a piece of coursework essay over 3 weeks. So we are expecting you to treat it like a piece of coursework. We're expecting to be considered references, considered ideas, and for it to look pretty polished. So if we had wanted you to, treat it as an exam, we would have done that, but we thought it was nice to take this opportunity to give you more time so that you could really think about putting your strongest ideas forward. So yes, we want to see references, we want to have a reference list at the end, normal Harvard style. We expect to see years and page numbers. So yeah, great.
Thank you, Nicola. The second one from, I don't know if it's the same A or another A. There was an issue on Ellie with the actual assignment, Nicola. Can you just explain what happened there and where we are?
I think we've moved on. This was some confusion at the start, and it was before the hub had updated our LE page.
Okay.
So I think that's now updated with all the correct information. The students, you've all received now this exam paper, so that question is now historic.
Great. Okay. Next one. M has asked, I was wondering if we need references for section B. Do we need to ground our observations from the source in wider reading?
Yeah, so I think we've probably answered that in that, yes, we're expecting you to have references for section A and section B. One of the things to remember is for both of these is that we want you to ensure, particularly for section B, that you present your analysis of the article. So you're going to be doing this little shuttle between the reference, the academic reading and the article. And we don't want section B to only be one thing. We don't want it to only be your reading of the article or only a literature review. They've got to speak to each other.
We would expect Ateli 2019 to be referenced multiple times in question 4, and Fill in the Blanks UK 2020 to be referenced quite a few times in 3 if you choose that one, plus all of the other academic references, so that they're bouncing up against, they look equally important. That's a key thing for this question to be answered. This part of the exam to be done well, I think. Okay, should we move on?
Yep.
So here, Samuel Haig says, are we able to reference videos in our essay answers? Good question. So is there a long answer or a short answer to this?
Well, I think this is, there's no problem. And use the style guide for how to reference any of these sources if you've got any questions.
So it's still a name and a date and a title and that kind of thing. It just needs to be referenced like anything else as much as possible. Yeah, that's good. Again, making sure that it's clear that what's being referenced is a non-academic source versus an academic source. Sometimes it's one of the things that sometimes confuses a response like this is if a non-academic source is being treated as if it's an academic source. I think it needs to be quite clear that you're drawing on popular versus academic sources and bringing those together. So it's more likely that the video would be more like the newspaper article or more like this Medium blog post than it would be like, Paul Gilroy or Stuart Hall or, somebody like that.
Although you might have a lecture, so you listen to Stuart Hall lecturing, I suppose. But there is a different quality to a lecture to a written source. So you just think it's like any source, think through what its origin is.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the danger sometimes. I mean, it's not hardly anyone does this, but of just kind of looking just random stuff up online and finding a blog and you don't know where it's from, and then it has got some academic content in it, so you use it as an academic reference, and that's not the gold standard for academic reading, really. So please try to avoid doing that.
Definitely.
But if there's, I think this is particularly good if it's an extra illustration. Do you know what I mean? It's an extra illustration to go alongside another illustration that you might want to make. Well, actually, to illustrate the essay-like questions in section 1, it would illustrate part of your answer, and with the part B, it would be an illustration that goes alongside the illustration that we've given you. Another example, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like Nicola says, if you've seen an online lecture by Stuart Hall, or there's that really good lecture about decolonizing museums that we use, I'd count that as an academic reference, because it is really, really detailed, and it's not just an opinion piece. It's a detailed piece of it's something you can imagine reading.
Yeah.
All right. So where are we now? We're down here with F. Will we need to use the geography submission sticker for the exam as we would for normal coursework pieces?
So I had to dig around to work out what the answer to this question was. And I read the information that we've been given as students for how to submit your work through this exam period. And I decided that if you followed all the steps that they are asking you to do as you submit your and upload your information, that effectively was going to give the same information that's on the sticker, and indeed may generate a sticker kind of behind the scenes. So I don't think you have to do anything other than follow the guidelines that you've been given, and I've pasted the link for that technical guide which you need to follow, and you will have been given and is on the COVID-19 help page.
Okay. So there's a follow-up here as well, so which is about in section B, whether it's appropriate to analyse the photos in the articles. So we've got this photograph here from the first one, and somebody reading this spoof newspaper on the tube, and then in the second one we've just got the photograph of this unofficial guerrilla art exhibit that's illustrating Olivet Atelli's piece as well. So what would you say to that, Nicola?
I would say absolutely, because these are texts which are about as much about the titles and about who's writing them as they are about the argument and what visual culture kind of gets integrated into the text.
It's the whole thing. Everything that we show you is something that you can interpret.
Yeah.
I think it's there.
So and it's always important to think about the relationship between images and text and what the power of that is, and what those images are, why they've been chosen, what effect they have. Sometimes they might not be a very well chosen picture, but sometimes they can be absolutely, very evocative of a certain issue. And, I think all of you will recognize those two images, and there's a lot of mileage in both of those images if you want to interrogate them.
It's kind of like the idea, if you look at the article and you find yourself highlighting something interesting, then that's something to bounce off. It's the same with the photographs. If there's something about the photographs that captures your imagination and you think it's really important to talk about it. Subtitles in articles, the figure headings, all of it. So whatever we give you is something you can think with. So,
and it's probably just worth noticing that we've got a square bracket on question 3. There's a square bracket which says the paper's spoof cover story read. When something's in a square bracket, it's kind of like for information. We're giving it you for information so that you understand the context.
Yep. Okay. So we need to go back to section A for the next, here we go, section A for the next question from I. For the section A, question 1, can we read and use Sussman's 2014 book in our essay, or is this not advised?
Yeah, so you don't need to read Sussman's book to answer this question. What we're going to, when I think we probably shared Sussman's stuff on the Facebook page. And basically, back in 2014, Robert Sussman wrote a book called The Myth of Race, The Troubling Persistence of an Unscientific Idea. And I think we probably shared on the Facebook page some excerpts from his book, which were published when the book was being promoted in 2014 in Newsweek and Salon. And so we will just pick those up and put them into the blog.
Should we put them on this page, on the exam page?
Yeah, I think we'll put them into the answer to this question.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Will that work?
Yep.
And then, yeah, we're not then really expecting you to read a whole book. You know, we didn't put that on the main reading list, but this is a really good question to remind us that actually, you know, it's great to go and find the source if you want. However, you don't need to read Sussman stuff, because you could just completely bounce from that question and use the readings that you've been given in class without any problem. So we set that question because we thought it was a really interesting challenge to respond to, and we knew you had the resources at your fingertips to do that from the work that you've done in class.
Okay, now we're moving on to, right, we're going back to section B for E's questions. So here, when it says to critically, when it says to critically discuss the issues raised in the article, does this mean we should consider a counter-argument or alternative ideas? Also, should we write the word count on each essay under each section that we write, or just combine the word counts in the submission sticker? Well, let's do the first part here. Can we just clarify a little bit what critically discuss means here? I think we've already kind of done it, but let's just reiterate it again.
So for me, critically discussing is how we use our reading and our kind of all the reading that we've done to kind of learn about global lives, how we then apply that and think about things and question them and interrogate them using this sort of theoretical lens that we've been employing. It's not about saying something's right or wrong. It's about really making detailed sense through the deep thinking that we've been doing about post-colonial and decolonizing thought. So
yeah.
That's my starter for 10.
Yeah, I think the counter-argument alternative ideas, that sounds more like a model that you'd use in a debating society, where you have one person who's pro the topic and one who's against it, and that's the whole kind of two sides to a story kind of thing just doesn't work particularly well. There are dozens of different sides to a story, and it's just that we're interested in the way in which, like Nicholas said, you use the ideas in the literature to make sense, to read these articles carefully and see patterns and ideas in there, and critique them. Maybe there might be things in there, that ways that things are discussed, that if you read this or that author's work, that doesn't look quite right. It's that kind of level of thing, or it does look right, you know, it's that level of critical engagement, really. Yeah. And in terms of word counts, I don't know, what do you think about the word counts, Nicola?
So I think from my reading of the technical submission is that you're just going to have one box to write a word count in.
Okay.
So I think this is going to be a total word count for both of your essays. And obviously you include all the words in the body of the essay, including your references, including quotes, but you don't need to include, for example, if you decide to write out the title, you don't include that you don't include a rewritten question in your word count, nor do you include the reference list. But everything...
So text references don't count, but the reference list, hold on a minute, yeah, it does count, that's right.
So in-text references are part of your word count, reference list isn't. And I think you're just going to add up your part, or your section A and your section B, and give a total word count.
Great. So
therefore, each essay is 1,000 words. It's not, you know, you don't get 500 words for one essay and 1,500 words for the second essay. You've got to have balanced essays.